News, commentary, everything Peekskill. We have an interesting show for you tonight. Our first segment, we're going to talk about the Peekskill Community Congress. Our guest tonight is Jason Angell, who's going to be the facilitator of that movement, and he's going to tell us all about it. Our second segment will be City Hall. What's going on down in City Hall? And our third segment, hot button issue in town, the homeless shelter over on Washington Avenue and the movement of the Jan Peek Center. Hi, I'm Bob Sullivan.
Hi, I'm Joe Torres.
Hi, I'm Jason Angell with the Peekskill Community Congress.
Hi, I'm Louis Segar. Hi, I'm Bruce Bellamy, Man on the Street.
Well, our first segment, as we mentioned, is the Peekskill Community Congress. And our guest tonight, Jason Angell. Welcome, Jason.
Hi, thank you
Appreciate
for having me.
coming.
Thank you all for having me.
Jason, Peekskill Community Congress. We got a Congress. What do we need a Congress in Peekskill? What's that all about?
Good question. So the Community Congress, Bob, when we came up with that name, and we've done that initiative in the town of Phillipstown, we were thinking of two things. One, I had actually never opened the dictionary and looked at the definition of Congress. And you're right, the first definition of Congress is the supreme legislative body of the land. Mm-hmm. And we stick community in front of it, and we say that, regular people should have a real role in influencing the decisions that make their lives. So we want to create a process that gives people the chance to weigh in on those sorts of decisions. And then I had never read down to the second definition, which was, I never made it that far, the act of coming together, Congress. And so, that is the other idea, is that it's a nonpartisan initiative. It's open to everybody. And really, especially in times when I think a lot of communities are finding it difficult to come together, we want to provide a space for people to be able to come together.
Well, tell us a little bit about the process, what the Congress does, how it gets initiated. First of all, I forgot we should have let in to learn a little bit about you. You're familiar with Peekskill. You were associated, I guess you were the executive director of the BID at one point in time, for a while.
That's right.
So you know Peekskill. And so tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
So I was, that was a couple years ago. So I was the executive director of the Peekskill Business Improvement District for a couple years. I know Joe from those times,
Sure.
And we were working on a lot of issues related to small business and economic development at Peekskill. And I live over the line in Garrison, where I have a farm, and
Nice.
So I've just always, I walk into Peekskill, know a lot of community leaders, and have a sense of Peekskill and the community, and excited to be back.
So is geography what led you to Peekskill, or is there something more that attracted you to start that or work with this initiative here in Peekskill?
Well, good question. I mean, so we'll get into it, I'm sure. We did this initiative in the town of Phillipstown, which has a different feel to it, mostly rural, different demographics. But we came back to Peekskill because, to do this well, you need people in the community to lead it.
Sure.
We are not the leaders of this. It will be the community leaders in Peekskill and the people that engage that will lead it. And so from my work with the BID, we knew a lot of people here and wanted to come back and do a second.
So how will this enhance Peekskill? How will this initiative enhance the city itself?
Well, you know what? To be honest, that is to be seen. That is to be seen.
Let me ask you a question. So I know you said you did it in Garrison, right?
Yeah.
So how did that work out, as far as, putting that up there?
So we did in Garrison. So the town of Phillipstown. So it was Garrison, Cold Spring, Nelsonville, Continental Village, North Highlands. It's a smaller community, about 10,000 people. And we did the process, which is a simple idea. Anybody who's a resident of the town of Phillipstown could, they could name a priority. What do you think is the most important thing? What should we get done?
So in other words, it's kind of what you feel needs to be addressed in the city you live in, or wherever the Congress is. So I think, which is, it's not a bad idea, I think, because it brings a lot of things to attention. I mean, I know we usually have a council for that, and everybody goes and complains about it. But a lot of times nothing really gets done, so, and I know because I've been on the council, so. But, because it's hard to get done. But I think if you get enough people, to have a force behind it, you can get things done probably more quickly.
Lead us through the process a little bit. How's it get started? What's your role? And just tell us how it all works and,
Sure.
and the timeline of how this is going to work in Peekskill.
Sure. So it starts with a very simple idea, right? I'm not the brightest guy, so it's got to be a simple idea. And it's just ask people a simple question. What would be your number one priority for improving your community? So we host a series of public forums, which we will start in Peekskill. The first will be in mid-December, December 12th, I believe, at United Methodist Church. And that'll be any resident from Peekskill can propose a priority. We'll do a number of those forums, and they're supposed to be fun. There's food. Hopefully there'll be music, people from different, different groups that don't always come together. Mm-hmm. And after those series of 3 or 4 forums in Phillipstown, we ended up with about 40 ideas that came from people. We took those ideas and we put them on a ballot. All right, so it's not like going and voting for a person in a political party. Mm-hmm. It's going, regardless of political party, voting for the top 3 ideas you agree with that you think are the most important. Okay. And then after that ballot process, and so in Phillipstown, we had about 800 people vote in that process. It was a first-time run, but that was about 25% of the people that voted in the last local election. Okay. So as a first-time run, you're starting to say, okay, people want to participate in politics in a different way. And then we use those priorities to say, okay, we now have a sense of what people in a community, regardless of political battles, regardless of religious differences, what they want in common.
So where do they vote? What's the process of them voting? How do they come to a certain location? Or how does that happen? Okay,
so good question. So what we do is the ballot is a mail ballot, and it goes to every residential address in the municipality. So in the town of Phillipstown, it was mailed to every residential address, and that's it's because anybody who's a resident of that community can vote. Right. And so that was that was the way you got your ballot. And then there were at 2 or 3 locations you could drop off your ballot. So the local public library, the local school.
So everybody in the city will receive a ballot.
Everybody in the city will receive a ballot.
And will they have prior knowledge of that?
They will. I mean, our hope is that with these public forums and momentum catching on, and, we do have a grant to do this. We're a nonprofit organization that we will be able to put, it's not a big grant because it's a grassroots effort, but we're going to be putting the word out through Facebook, advertising, through ads in, the Northern Westchester Examiner.
I'm just wondering, who gives you the grant? Where do you receive the grant from?
So it's a foundation in New York City called the Endeavor Foundation. Okay.
Yeah, just wondering.
Yeah. Good question. And so they funded our organization, and the mission of our organization is to grow citizen-led campaigns to build a more just, healthy, and sustainable way of life. So
with anything new, there's always a little bit of pushback.
Yeah.
What's the biggest pushback you guys have had in putting this initiative together?
That's a good question. I mean, so Bobby, you were just asking me this about pushback. So when we started in Phillipstown, there was pushback because I feel like people always think if it's anything, and this is not political, this is not part of the political process, but we use the word vote, we use the word name your top priority, a community, and people associate politics with agendas and motives, and that was the automatic pushback. What's the agenda? What's the motive? And I think the different thing about the Community Congress is, and this is what makes it successful, there is no agenda. It depends on what people in Peekskill put out there, and it depends on what people promote. All we're doing is building a platform.
Let me ask you this though. How do you prevent, or what's the check against this process being hijacked by a particular interest group or somebody that does have an agenda?
I have the numbers.
I mean, you mentioned in Phillipstown you had 25% of the registered voters. And I would say, and this may sound partisan, but unfortunately, people who tend to participate in things like this are people who have causes. Most people that have the 9 to 5, they go home, and the only time they go to vote is the second Tuesday in November. So how do you avoid that, or how do you control that, if at all, where, let's say, somebody wants to move a homeless shelter or something, and they get together a bunch of people and they show up at your forum and they say, we should have a homeless shelter on every counter or on every corner. What's the check against that?
I mean, the only check, where I guess an organized interest could have an impact is in the voting process, right? But all we do is we make sure it's in every household, and we're going to have, this is what we did in Phillipstown, just volunteers handing out flyers saying, have you done your ballot? This is your way to vote. Participate. This is your chance to name your top priority. But the fact of the matter is, like you all know, in any democracy, democracy is about, organized people around issues. And if there is an organized, issue, then, it's, the whole point here is get in, participate, right? And it's not the old way of doing politics. It's a new way of doing politics. Get in and say what you care about.
What's come out of the work you've done in Phillipstown? What
Yeah,
new
like what-
ideas came
yeah,
out that,
sure. That you guys
that
put.
was because of the initiative you guys put forward?
So here are a couple of the things that happened after Phillipstown. One thing which shocked me, right? So out of those 800 people that voted, and then I'll kind of talk about some of the impacts, there was a little box you could check on your ballot, right? You can put your cell phone and your email, which most people don't like to do. And if you checked a box, it said, I want to volunteer to help make the priority I voted for a reality. Guess how many people checked that box out of 800?
400.
I'm gonna say 70%.
You read the report. You told me you read the report. I was
400?
Oh, 400.
I was shocked by that because 50%, when you go to, 50%, so it created this huge volunteer list, right, which was shocking, and that's part of the hope of the Peekskill effort, engaging people. But then the things that came out of it, it was a mix. Some of the top 10 things in Phillipstown, and they'll be different in Peekskill. I think number 1 was biking and walking infrastructure in Phillipstown. Number 2 was clean water. Number 3 was youth programs and a teen center, because there's there's a growing opioid concern, which is everywhere. Number 4 was a sustainable community thing, and number 5 was sales tax distribution, because a lot of local businesses
consolidating the school districts.
What's that?
4 was consolidating the school
4
districts.
was consolidating
Sure
the
was.
school. Oh, bro, he's done
He did his homework.
He did his homework for me.
Just on that,
Yeah.
did it come to fruition in Cold Spring?
Yes.
The walking trails.
So out of those, some of them were things that local government had to take action on, and some were things that the community had to take action on. So it's not all local government do this. So Bob, to answer your question, the ones that the local government had to take action on, these are the ones that they did after the community congress. They hired an opioid coordinator, so they put money aside for the first time to hire the first time the town has had a coordinated person to say this is what you do. They have started a clean water initiative, and they're re-looking at their clean water policy. And the third thing, come to me.
Just next Bob.
What was the third thing? This is the third thing. And one citizen group says we need to update the comprehensive plan because the comprehensive plan guides the city. And so they started to update the comprehensive plan committee. The biking and walking group, which I'm a part of because I felt bad for the person that proposed it, like, you won, now you have to lead it. Oh, geez, now you're going to lead it. So they just got a grant from the National Park Service to do a feasibility study for the town of Phillipstown on putting in a bike lane. The Clean Water Initiative, the organization that proposed it was the Hudson Highlands Land Trust. They got a massive federal grant because it actually helped the nonprofit, because they said, 600 people want clean water. You've shown there's community support. So it has a number of ways to kind of have different impacts.
So once you get this, once you figure out what is your initiatives, how do you present it? What's the next step? Does it go to the council? Does it go to the mayor? How do you bring forth?
Okay, so the only point I'll say is, I won't say what are our initiatives, I'm gonna say what are your initiatives as the city of Peekskill, right? Because we are just facilitators, and it's gonna be depending on who steps forward to propose ideas and who votes them. But after that voting process, we will do the same public report that's completely transparent and say, this is how the voting went, this is who voted for what, these were the number of invalid ballots, this is who voted by mail and who voted online. We'll give that to you all, local leaders, community organizations. Will present to the council and the mayor. And then, what we did in Phillipstown is we held a follow-up meeting to see, to plug in those 450 volunteers to keep priorities moving.
Now, how do you, and we spoke about this before we went on camera, in terms of validating the ballots. I mean, Peekskill is a little different than Phillipstown. We have multiple dwellings, we have public housing projects, we have condominiums. We have people that,
It's a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag. So when you have all these ballots go out to all these different addresses, how do you check and how do you validate what comes back? I mean, you could send, I mean, we did this when we went around door to door canvassing during a campaign. You go to a house and there's 14 mailboxes on the outside of a two-family house.
Yeah.
So how do you know what's coming out of there and how valid these ballots are?
So we will mail a ballot through the U.S. Postal Service, the Every Door Direct Mail program, and that'll mean that every residential address in Peekskill will receive a ballot. And that will be the only way they receive a ballot.
Okay. Now we have a
All
big
right.
Hispanic community. Is it
Yeah.
also in English and Spanish?
It will be all bilingual.
Okay.
All right. So, and I should plug this. Thursday evening is the launch planning meeting of the Peekskill Community Congress, where a lot of these diverse community leaders who want to engage in this process will be there. Welcome anybody to come. It's open to everybody. But we will be launching the website, which is ready, and that will be bilingual, and everything will be bilingual, because that's the demographics of Peekskill. You know?
Who are the community leaders that you're referring to?
So, Bob, come to the meeting on Thursday evening, and you will. So it's.
I tried to be a community leader. That didn't work out too well.
It's a host of people. So it's off the top of my head, people we've been working with a lot: Wilfredo Morel, Reverend Stephanie Graham, Peekskill Area Pastors Association, Bishop Champion, Martin McDonald, the Peekskill Business Improvement, the old place I used to work for, the Peekskill Bid, Chamber of Commerce, Deb Malone, local business leaders, Ben Green, you all. So
Peekskill now will be there.
there we go. There we go. So we're trying to get a cross section. We're trying to get a cross section. Yeah.
So how long does the process take? You're starting this in December?
So
You said
mid-December,
till-
yep, will be the first public forum. We'll do one a month for about 3 months, and then we hope to be doing the voting process after residents kind of put forward their priorities in early spring.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
One of the things, and we spoke about this off camera
Yeah.
too, in your report in Phillipstown, the voting population began at age 13, anybody 13 or above. Tell us a little bit about how you selected 13 and tell us how that works.
Do you have a 13-year-old at home?
No.
Oh, okay. you were like, oh, putting it. Well, so a couple things. We selected the age of 13, so anybody can vote in this process who is a resident of the city of Peekskill and 13 years or older. And we did that for a couple of reasons. One, the city of New York and the city of Hartford, and a number of other cities do participatory budgeting where they let citizens weigh in on the budget. They set it at 13. And when we looked into that, that's really because they want to draw young people into civic activity in a real way, in a way that gives them a voice. And so we set it at 13, and there'll be a number of administration officials from Peekskill High School there on Thursday evening, which I'm so excited about, because we really want to engage Peekskill High School youth in thinking about what they would do. It's going to be their community if they stay here. What would be their priority? And we're giving them a way to engage in a process that's real because they can vote. And so on one thing I'd say, we got a lot of feedback in the town of Phillipstown where families were saying, we were sitting down around the dinner table, we had this ballot, husbands and wives were sometimes agreeing, disagreeing, but their kids were saying, I want the teen center. I don't have anything to do, but it started a conversation. But we do want young people to engage. Yeah.
Interesting.
It was very interesting, actually.
Yeah, 13-year-old. Okay, we're going to have more basketball courts than we need. So.
I think we
Just
got
on
caught.
that note, how old did how much did the 13 on up the teenage group contribute to?
To be honest, not very much.
Okay.
Not very
All right.
much. So
I have to get
It's
that.
good to have the
I have to
conversation.
find out.
not very much. I hope more in Peekskill, but that'll come out in the report. But we were not as successful as we want to be engaging young people.
Okay.
We all know it's hard, but we're going to keep trying.
Right.
We're happy to be your first launch out here in the media so people can get to know you, know
Thank
what
you so much.
this program is about, and get to meet you in the next couple of meetings. Look forward to all the great success I think this program is going to have.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so
Sounds
much.
interesting.
Any questions or comments? Please reach us on Facebook or on YouTube.